May I begin by expressing appreciation to the Aban Tribunal, the Iran Atrocities Tribunal, for their engagement in securing justice for victims and accountability for human rights violators. We meet at an important moment of remembrance and reminder, of bearing witness and taking action, where the Aban Tribunal, with its distinguished judicial panel, can be an important resource and inspiration for international justice and accountability. Indeed, we meet amidst a massive repression of widespread protests in Iran, brought about by the tragic death in custody of Mahsa Amini. Widespread protests that have brought together and brought out a cross-section of the Iranian people, not only women's groups, but students, trade unionists. As I said, a cross-section of Iranian society across all provinces in Iran. Protests not only just in Tehran, who've come together to protest against this massive repression that has been ongoing, and which has resulted, as we meet, in over 70 deaths, hundreds of injuries, thousands being imprisoned, including many journalists, and an internet shutdown intended to silence and exclude the protests from view. The whole not unlike the Green Revolution of 2009, the protests of 2019, and the focus now of the Aban Tribunal, where the clarion call of women, life, freedom, says it all. And while the Iranian morality police have been the subject of sanctions, for example, by the US, Canada, and the European Union, let us not ignore the role and responsibilities of President Ibrahim Raisi and his accompanying architects of repression. It was Ibrahim Raisi who, as a member of the death squad of 1988, ordered the murder of thousands of Iranian dissidents, which the Canadian Parliament in a unanimous resolution characterized as a crime against humanity, and where we in Canada have set aside September 1st every year in remembrance and as Iranian Political Prisoners Day. It was Ibrahim Raisi, as Deputy Chief Justice, who presided over the mass repression of the Green Revolution in 2009. And it was Ibrahim Raisi, as Attorney General, who was responsible for the high rise in executions, where Iran became amongst the world leaders in per capita executions. It was Ibrahim Raisi, who was Chief Justice, presided over the 2019 protests. It was Ibrahim Raisi who chaired the inquiry into the downing of the PS-752 Ukrainian airliner, which sought to whitewash accountability for that, but which a court in Canada characterized as an act of terror. And it was Ibrahim Raisi who now, as president, oversees and orders the massive repression of the protests now taking place in the streets of Iran. Accordingly, the time has come, indeed it is long past, to put an end to this culture of impunity, a culture of impunity which has only incentivized more crime and more oppression, to sanction not only the morality police, so-called, but the architects of repression in Iran. And our Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in 2018 published a list of these 19 architects of repression. And now Ibrahim Raisi is at the top of that list. To call on the UN Human Rights Council to convene an emergency session on the mass violations of human rights in Iran, to engage the UN special procedures and their mechanisms, many of whom called out the 1988 massacre of Iranian dissidents. And I want to commend the work of the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Iran, Javid Rehman, who has been exemplary in his work in this regard. In a word, the time has come for all of us to join with the Aban Tribunal to secure long-denied justice for the long-suffering Iranian people, and to seek and secure long-awaited accountability for the human rights violators led by Ibrahim Raisi and his accompanying architects of repression. Yes, justice for the long-suffering people of Iran, accountability for the violators, and in that sense, implementing the Aban Tribunal. Thank you.